So let me introduce Rocky Ferry. Professor Rocky, distinguished professor. I think you are in Canada, but you work in the US, right?
That's correct.
Excellent. So thank you very much. He has written and published. He's a award winner of many articles. We know him through his articles, reading his articles, and he's very much a global, his perspective on, I have read many of his articles, looking at issues from all over the developing countries, from Africa, from others. Well distinguished. It's a pleasure to have you. So Professor Rocky, the floor is yours. And just to give you what happened in the morning, the last 4 sessions, the moderator, like yourself now, you have the option, you ask question after each presentation, or you keep them all to the end. You are in control now. So we will follow whatever you do. So it's yours now. Go ahead.
Thank you very much for that fabulous introduction. I think that it appears that I'm much more scholarly than I give myself credit for. I certainly have a significant amount of experience working globally. And at this point, I think when I look at the presenters and their background, they too have extensive experience in the field. And like the people who are attending today, I'm very much looking forward to your presentations. So I think first up today, we'll have Madam Webb. Are you ready to present, Madam Webb?
Yes, I am.
That is absolutely super. So I'll let you take your presentation, and then being democratic, we'll ask the group if they have questions going forward as opposed to keeping them till the back end. I want to make sure everybody gets their questions asked and answered, and we have a good solid debate and discussion about each presentation. So I'll turn the presentation over to you, Madam.
Professor McQuaid will be co-presenting with me, so he will start, if that's okay.
Oh, that's fabulous.
So I'm trying to share my screen with you. I've done the classic of having some security on the thing. So perhaps, Alex, can you share your screen with the presentation? Mm-hmm. So otherwise I have to go and change my security settings, which I hadn't realized prohibit my sharing of the screen. There we go. Thank you very much.
Shall I make you co-host, Ron?
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so you're co-host now. I made you co-host, so you can.
Oh, so I can change this?
Yes, yes, you can present. Yeah.
Very good. Okay, there's 3 authors of this. Well, in reality, there's one main author, which is Aleksandra, who's been introduced before, and I'm just going to set out a little bit of the beginning of the presentation. But she's done the vast bulk of the work on this. And right, next slide. So whoever's got control. Yeah, thank you. Just as a disclosure factor, this is part of a small EU-funded project called Escalate, coordinating higher education responses to digitalization, which was actually started before COVID-19. So we were rather lucky or unlucky in that respect. But it means we're comparing some different experiences in different EU countries, both East European, Romania, Southern Europe, Italy, Spain, and UK. Basically, to set out some context, the digitalization's high on the agenda of supranational bodies like the EU, the UN, etc., and universities across the globe are undergoing constant transformation so they can better respond to society and labour market needs. But this means that universities have had to develop and adjust additional digital strategies and digital literacies and skills among the academic staff in order to respond to the demands for more online learning and global connectivity. So much innovation, learning and teaching increasingly involves digital technologies. In fact, it was quite interesting to see one of the last papers on Cambridge where the doctors have moved from 1% to 25% online consultations with patients. That's my interpretation of it. And certainly as somebody who's actually had the experience of online consultations, in some ways it is a great improvement. In saves everybody a lot of travel time, etc. Although there are differences, I think, in seeing people in person versus the video. So there's pros and cons of it. Also, COVID-19 then has forced universities and others to respond rapidly to increased digital teaching and services in a rather hurried way, and therefore we haven't actually thought through a lot of the issues. And that's what part of our project is about, is thinking through some of the issues of this very rapid move towards online. We've moved along some existing trends in online teaching, but also we've got some new trends. But there's a lot of uncertainty here. We're uncertain about which of these trends are going to be permanent, which will be discarded once we get the vaccine for COVID and get back to something verging on the normal, or which will be amended after the pandemic. Some may be systematic changes, which is really about the universities, which is the focus of our paper, universities rethinking what the meaning of education for them is. How do they organize it, both for the students and for the staff? Other issues may be the problems of datafication of education. Now, this is what Ben Williamson argues, that the process of datafication means that many functions or practices or tasks of higher education are being rendered machine readable. So they're machine readable as digital information. So that means when we give assessments to students, it can all be recorded in a machine readable form. This has got a lot of implications. So it can lead to developing algorithms, which we know the many biases of algorithms, especially they're based on a particular cohort that you're looking at. There may be developing data analytics for monitoring students, which already happens in many universities, and for monitoring staff. Maybe introducing more machine learning or even AI into assessments and teaching. And in that way, maybe university staff are currently training their technology that's going to replace them in future. So this raises issues of how the information is used, by whom as well, and other unintended consequences. These unintended consequences may be automation, surveillance, or data protection, as mentioned by Frida earlier in one of the last talks, or ethical issues. So next slide, please. So to give some context for the universities in Scotland and the UK, the Digital Economy and Society Index is a composite index published annually by the European Commission. It's been doing it since 2014, and the 2021 is recently out. And it measures the progress made by EU states towards digital economy and society, bringing together a whole set of relevant indices. And overall, it shows that the UK is one of the more advanced societies in the EU in terms of digital economy. 71% of the population with at least basic digital skills compared to 57%. So while we look at the EU compared to, say, Uganda earlier on, we had excellent keynote speech on Uganda and the problems of lack of digital literacy, etc., in the population there. But still, in the EU, it's not much more than half the people actually have basic digital skills. About 46% of the population have above basic levels in the UK, compared to the EU average of less than a third. The other thing that so Europe is by no means monolithic in terms of the access to digital information, digital services, digital education, etc. Now, in terms of skills shortages predicted by the Commission over the next 5 years, in UK and elsewhere, particularly the new jobs such as AI, cybersecurity, and e-commerce. But in addition, major shortages are projected in social and emotional intelligence skills, so maybe leadership, adaptability, continuous learning, interpersonal skills, etc. And also in cognitive skills such as higher level information processes and in interpretation and critical thinking. These are core university taught skills. These are absolutely core to what the university is doing. So we know that there are going to be major shortages, and universities have got a key role to play in that. So next and final slide for me. Now, finally, to set a number of the context of universities, they sit within a number of UK or national digital strategies, and also in the case of Scotland, and this is probably true across the globe, but in terms of Scotland, we also have a Scottish Government's digital strategy, which aspires to harness the technologies of the fourth industrial revolution to increase economic and social prosperity. We've had earlier revolutions, coal and steel, information technologies, etc., and the first industrial revolution of steam power, water power, and textiles, etc. So this is the fourth one in the last couple of 100 years, the argument goes. But these types of strategies do feed through to higher education policy. So in the case of Scotland, the Quality Assurance Agency for Higher Education argues that key policy-based initiatives and programs influencing digitalization in higher education institutions are aligned with the vision for Scotland as a productive, innovative and digital nation with education and skilled workforce able to successfully engage in the world of work in a globalized modern economy. So we can see what the higher education institutions, universities are actually operating very much within a context. But it is quite interesting that that context is probably quite unsurprisingly in terms of the government's focus on employment, economic development, etc. But the role of education as an educated policy, including issues of arts, etc., are maybe downplayed if we fit the university strategy within these wider, more economically based strategies. So that's another issue that we may unintendedly be moving towards a certain direction which we haven't clearly all thought through. So now I want to pass over to Alex, the main author, to discuss some of the initial changes in practice in response to COVID-19 in universities in Scotland. It's very early days yet, but there's much to come. So I'll pass over to Alex.
Thank you very much, Ron. So before, I think that the presentation just disappeared. So I'll just load it quickly again. Apologies for that. Can you see it?
Yes,
Yes,
we
okay.
can definitely see.
Lovely, thank you. So I'll just carry on in that context of Scottish idea for embedding digitalization. Obviously, a lot of things have been already happening even before COVID happened. So there has been many examples of proactive developments by higher education institutions in addressing that digitalization need. Obviously, not all institutions will have the same resources and the strategic vision for how to fund or how to organize and deliver those national digital aspirations. And even just the fact that we've already discovered today and talked briefly about the whole idea of understanding of digital education and digital university. Over the years, a lot of terms came up, a great variety of terms indeed. And just the slide mentions just a few, like digital university, digital literacies, virtual learning, e-learning, manual earlier on also referred to the hybrid versus blended learning. All those concepts and names appear in the domain, and there is important distinction perhaps that once some users and some institutions use it interchangeably, they do suggest a difference in a degree to which technology is already used, or a level of integration of those digital practices with the more sort of traditional methods of learning and teaching. What's important is to emphasize the different shifts that happened recently that perhaps stimulated the interest in digital learning and e-learning and the need for it. And very important one is the changing way in students want to learn, and thus digitalization is perceived as an opportunity to enhance student participation and engagement and change this more traditional model of delivery that a lot of critics consider as perhaps more static in delivery, and taking it to the new way of learning, more flexible, more dynamic, where the agency of students is taken into consideration. Of course, as Ron already emphasized, the other important shift is the whole idea of preparing students for work, and the agenda of employability and embedding skills, including digital skills, into curriculum is definitely one of the factors that is playing in driving the move towards online blended, or whichever term we're going to use. And then very important as well is to look at the higher education institutions as the working businesses, institutions that need to be competitive. They need to create operational advantage, and digital learning offer that potential scalable measures to introduce more cost-effective and time-effective learning initiatives. And especially this is important in the context of increased number of students. And that's an argument for a lot of institutions to be tapping into this trend. In recent years, universities around the world, also Scottish universities, have heavily invested in development of digital structures, such as virtual learning environments that enable an application of different measures, such as podcasts and forums and wikis and blogs and various discussions forums. And also the whole system enables students to actually be assessed in that online environment as well. And that's very important, to be able to create an infrastructure whereby it's not only a delivery, but also students are able to be assessed through the submissions, e-submissions, e-portfolios, and as such. We also have examples of those massive courses, MOOCs, massive open online courses, where the wholly online learning experience happened before COVID. And while the emphasis was, especially pre-pandemic, on that opportunities of bringing learners, connecting them, enabling them to collaborate away from the university campus, so tapping into those opportunities of what technology can actually do to us in terms of connecting us. Yet a lot of critics encouraged to reflect about that path dependencies for future, and how those choices, including implementation of those massive learning initiatives, how do they set a certain paradigm for delivery, and maybe an expectation for solutions for learners and teachers in the future. So lots of things were already happening before the pandemic, and very important is also to make a distinction that universities were trying to respond in a multifolded way. So obviously, in order to increase that provision of digital skills, a lot of happened in that realm of delivering specific programs of skills that are needed and desired by employers out there. So a range of different proposition of courses that address digital skills, such as ICTs, artificial intelligence, all the data science, cybersecurity and computing, all those skills or programs featuring those skills are already on offer in many universities. This is also very important in this moment to emphasize that those courses would be addressing what we call the specific digital skill gap, meaning the skills that are sector or role distinguishing specific. So they are needed in a specific domain. So for example, for designers, there would be ability to also use things like Adobe Photoshop. For engineers working in manufacturing context, things like computer-aided designs, and many different formats of customer relationships management software, or computer programming and networking in IT. So those would be very specific skills that are desired by the employers out there. But that's not the only thing. Universities also recognize that there are a wider idea of what we understand as a digital skills, something that we could call much softer skills, of being able to actually use a basic ability to maneuver in the online space, be able to operate, like for students within that virtual learning environment, being able to tap and access to resources such as library and all those different productivity softwares and tools that are now available to both staff and students. That sort of a data literacy is much wider than just the distinguished skills, digital skills, specific digital skills. And of course, the other side of that development is definitely placed with the focus on the staff to be able to use and offer and deliver learning within those VLEs platforms. They have to have skills and abilities to do that. So a lot of effort in terms of promoting and delivering online and blended learning was key even before the pandemic. Now, the other important aspect here is that the digital skills are also much more widely now embedded within whole curriculum. And this is quite a new and refreshing way in responding to digital gaps, of offering students to actually train and upskill and develop their skills in a kind of problem-solving mode. And is important as much as what they do and how they utilize access to data, how they're able to handle and analyze data. The important part as well in turning the assessment into more innovative and a digital literacy oriented task is how students are then present or communicate that knowledge. Very much it is about emphasizing delivery or communication of gained knowledge in that new format, which is the format of digital artifacts. So we're talking here, asking students about doing presentation or video or podcast or a digital essay, rather a traditional format of delivery. And all of that sort of captures that need and increases understanding of what we mean by digital skills. So those very specific subject-oriented skills, the idea of a work versus today and tomorrow, being able to operate flexibly and with appropriate level of skills in terms of how they communicate, how they hold conversation in the digital format, how they conduct interviews or are being interviewed by potential employers. So all of that aspects are very, very important. All of that, of course, comes and is very much demonstrated in absolute necessity for university now to invest in those systems that enable to create that knowledge and exchange. So various different universities will have a very different operating systems. It could be Panopto, could be something else, but those are absolutely mandatory infrastructure elements now to deliver all what I've been just talking about. And the last aspect is about emphasizing importance of students' learning experience. So recognizing how much investment needs to be done in terms of that infrastructure, but also access to physical equipment for students and staff indeed, but also the need for communicating with students in the formats that are much more appropriate for them, something that they feel like they're following and understanding more. So snappy, short information using blogs and using social media and apps is something that now is being embedded into that idea of digital university. So all of this has been happening, at least to extent, before the COVID, but we all know, and so many lovely speakers already today presented how much of shock for the higher education, and not only, was COVID-19 and a pandemic, and really highlighted the importance of digital delivery, and in a sense highlighted the perhaps lack of preparedness for many institutions. Others got out of the crisis or coming out of the crisis or still within this transition period in a better position. And in all of this, it's very important to highlight what's been done well. So we have an example of a local Scottish higher education institution with some of the practices that enabled staff and students alike to actually undergo this transition in the best way potentially possible. And those practices seem to make a good effort and impact it positively. And the first practice is something called a scheme called Digital Champions, and of course the universities that provided a lot of training in a timely manners for staff were the ones who noted the difference. So the idea here is not only to provide training in the usage of VLEs or how to actually use the tools, but the idea that also came up earlier during today, being able to actually translate the ideas or pedagogy behind a concept and courses into this completely new way of delivering. And digital champions were members of faculty, members of the schools who were there feeling a bit maybe more confident in terms of the usage and understanding of technology, and they were able to help to translate that traditional face-to-face delivery into the new model of VLE and actually enthuse colleagues to focus on those design principles and the student-focused delivery. So they were also kind of a vessel for many institutions and for our local institution too, in terms of communicating what's needed, as they were kind of a vessel in between of a team of faculty members who are responsible for introducing a new training for staff. They were able to feedback in two ways what's actually needed on the ground. Very important aspect as well was to share the positive practices, and a lot of innovation happened there in terms of how people shared practices, not only within the divisions or schools, but actually across the university as well. It was important to know what worked, what didn't work, and specific share points and exchange of files and folders and practices took place. It was also quite important to see how this transition obviously impacted students, and again, a very stressful time and huge transition for students alike. And important was to provide students with enough information, access to digital resources. The student couldn't access campuses, therefore the important thing was to provide them access to e-textbooks and other learning materials, shift as much learning into a synchronous model of delivery, so we could accommodate for different needs and different time zone lifestyles and other caring or different responsibilities the students had. So lots of, apart from those logistical things, a lot of help in terms of support, advice, psychological help and counseling, and social support in terms of creating as much of the collaborative space and buddy systems to enable students to actually feel like they belong to the community and they're part of the university, even if they find themselves away and at distance. Other practices were shared along, and also the important factor is that the technology was suddenly understood as not panacea for everything, but in these disruptive times definitely accelerated the need to reappraisal of what works and what needs further upskilling. I'm going to just rush a little bit, just noticing the time. So while there was a lot of positive practices happening, and the ones that I shared were just few to give you examples and insights, and I'm sure that you all have experiences from your own institutions or elsewhere that you were able to see how many probably similar practices emerged, and all, as we said, from the quality also of good professionalism and the idea that academics and administrative staff really wanted to make that transition as smooth for students as possible. For many institutions, despite the appetite for becoming digital universities, especially under the impact, disruptive impact of COVID, is probably something still aspirational and perceived as incremental process rather than already fulfilled mission. And while the understanding is there to support both staff and students in acquiring wider digital competencies, the important thing is that COVID also highlighted, or at least makes us to stop and think about the potential unintended consequences of learning and teaching in a digital realms. Only now, perhaps, some of these ideas are surfacing, and they will evolve around personal data protection issues, cyber security issues that are not just characteristic to higher education, but all institutions who had to move their operations online. Lots of issues around ethical aspects, both of student attendance, also their performance monitoring practices. All those issues are really emerging. And this slide presents a list which by no means is exhaustive, is only indicative. But what we're really proposing is that those examples of conversations are already happening, giving us more and more snapshots each day on what we could perhaps call a dark side of online learning, and the ethicality of possible surveillance, both for staff and students, and the idea that perhaps some of this could be monetized and used not as per intended purpose of e-learning. And that idea of reuse of personal data. Professor Fortune was saying about the idea of sharing data and being very transparent with what's being known about that. And I think that this is one of the aspects that is coming to surface in terms of whether our students know what university systems know about them. So that idea of transparency and ethical approach, and also the path dependency of what are our decisions for the future, how we're going to teach, what we're going to teach, what's going to be influencing our choices, and whether the choices that our institutions make about what softwares or what providers we're using are the ones that will be there for us as a benchmark or as a one way of teaching. In that way, what we are all familiar with as a pedagogy-driven education might not be looking like in the future. Maybe the impacts of technology could potentially disrupt something that is very, very important. So concluding, while we're noticing that a lot of has changed, and obviously digital skills are needed, are sought by employers of today, and universities are a very important partner in making sure that those skills are provided and embedded in curriculum. Moving to online under very stressful circumstances and very rapid decisions, and under a lot of challenges, makes us to think about all-inclusive interventions, and whether implementations of learning are really practically focused, because they should be practically focused and should be effective, based on inclusion strategies and interventions that are reaching to all individuals, including those from disadvantaged backgrounds and with lower level of skills. Also, while we are in this transition and while we know still very little of a proper impact of COVID, there is that need to really think and take it seriously of what are potential long and short-term challenges, and especially those unintended consequences of digital learning and working. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctors McQuaid and Webb. You've certainly provided us with some insightful commentary and research. I'm going to for us to think about. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we hear you okay.
Okay,
Yep.
good. You've certainly provided us with some interesting and informative research. There certainly are a great many challenges. There's certainly many opportunities as we move forward in this shifting and changing environment that we currently live in. I'd like to ask our next presenter, Dr. Mohammed.
Nice. Okay. Thank you. So first of all, I thank you all. It is a wonderful arrangement. Professor Dr. Alam did it. It is indeed a great job. They're taking the people from.
Professor, sorry to interrupt you. Just for your on the screen here, if you can click on show slides, because on the social media it looks smaller. No, down. If you go down, just play your presentation. Just click on the show screen in the bottom.
Is it okay now?
Yeah, the next one. No, down, go down. You know, as if you want to play to click on the slide. Yeah, this one.
Okay, this one. Is it?
Yeah, that's it. Yes.
Oh, yeah, so nice of you. Technology still need to learn a lot. So what I'm trying to just tell that all of my friends in this conference, actually, we have come to the last part. So in some part of the world now it is night and someone is sleeping already. So I have come with experiences since I can say last 40 years. I have been teaching throughout the world and covered the Africa, then we can say the Europe, North American country, Far East and Middle East, and the South Asian countries. So this is actually a wonderful conference now, and the situation we are facing, this is actually a completely different situation than we have never faced since the last 40 years in my life. So I had experience throughout the teaching experience is in class teaching, where we have lots of philosophies you are using actually in class teaching. However, now this is the first time that we all are facing the problem. First, we used to go to school and used to tell the students, please, that means turn off your cell phone. So now they used to turn off the cell phone and used to teach. Now it is now you turn. We have to tell them, no, turn on your cell phone. Then we are teaching. So this is the complete change of the pattern. And people used to say before students used to go to school, now school has come to the cell phone now. So our young children, even at home, grade 3, 4, 5, all of them, they are now waiting and sitting with the computer and they are doing the online classes. It is not only the mature people, not only the university. In fact, the main problem here now that many people are not aware of in developing as well as in developed nation, how to use the technology. So before I give you just a brief idea of what the philosophy we are using before pandemic started and before we started the online teaching. So you can see that here a few of them: creation of suitable learning environment. When you are in the class, we are directly confronting with the students. So normally I tell students 3 things. That is my main philosophy, that I tell them give importance to 3 things in your life. And the 3 things are in the class also. Number 1, the man in front of you. So when I am in front of you, so I wish all of you will give importance to me. The same thing with me, I am as a teacher, will give importance to the students. By the way, my subject is accounting. So if anybody just miss that 1 minute of my lecture, they miss the whole class. It has got a very big connection with each other. It is not just lecture and you can grasp it later. It has got the systematic connection. So one should be very careful. So I told that is what we need to do. I give attention to you, you give attention to me. That is first thing. And the second thing, give importance to your work. Now you are for 3 hours in this class, just to do the 1 topics of accounting subject. You have to be there. If you are outside of, or if you are working with your text or your telephone, that means you are not with me. You're not with your work. So you have to give importance to your work. The second one, and give importance to your time. I'm getting with 3 hours of your time here today. So if you don't use the time properly, that means I can't give you anything and you cannot receive anything. So I start like that the philosophy that to convince the students to give the good talk, I tell them this, let us all give importance to 3 things. The person in front of you, the work in front of you, and the time. So it starts anywhere in the world. I taught, I got very good feedback and result due to that. So this is called creation of a suitable learning environment. Then student psychology, that means the knowledge, personal interaction. Now it is a very big thing now, how to inculcate the brain of the students. In a class, we have a different level of students. So if I say, do you understand? And 2 or 3 students say, yes, I have understood. I should not be satisfied because they are not the 100% in the class. There are so many, because of they are shy, they cannot ask questions. So I have own techniques now to open up them and to educate them and to let them feel comfortable that they are understanding. Then brain-based approach, the different approaches, the teaching, and then power of involvement, multidimensional means. This is, I explain very clearly, and all of you do it actually. The creation of environment, I already told, and then starting the psychology, starting students' psychology and in-depth knowledge is essential. It is very essential for us, if you see. And then this process is supported by personal interaction with my students as one of the most important aspects of my teaching. Familiarity with my students is crucial to the development of a good rapport with them. Availability, office hours, one-on-one appointment. These are another the psychology to use. Brain-based approach to utilize other means of teaching rather than direct classroom teaching. Approach may be used by introducing multidimensional teaching process, result in making students use their own intelligence and making the learning process more creative. Consider teaching as a learning experience. Learn to turn devotion and dedication into a fun activity for the students. Then we come to this multidimensional means. Not all students enjoy class lectures. Some enjoy learning through practical training, and some through presentation of papers and seminars, workshop. So we have a lot of facilities around the globe. The accounting job, we can go and visit industries, business firms, or specific non-profit organizations. We can give assignment to them, group work. So these different processes start. The periodic tests, group discussions, field-related work, using case studies, use of different teaching aids, seminars, and workshops. So this is now what I'm talking about on campus. And everybody who are teaching on campus, you are aware of all these arts and techniques. Now I come to online. Online, I have seen there are 2 different types of online teaching. Now I'm teaching in a university that they have online systems since a long time. So this online system, it is, students are not very much visible to their teachers. So the university where I'm teaching, there are two types of education going on. One is on campus, one is online. So this online one, I send them the materials, my contact information. So they read the materials, and then I give them the some sample questions and answers to understand the basic of the chapter. And then continuously we keep in touch through email. So there is no lecture, nothing is going on. So we just keep in touch with the students. And there are some cases, there are some discussions. So in the discussions, we give them the job to be done. First one, initial posting. And then they have to give at least 3 comments on the postings of their colleagues. So then when the initial posting starts, I start giving the comments, how I have observed this one. So now this week I'm giving a discussion forum that is called the dropping of an unprofitable customer. So this is a discussion, it will continue. People are writing, now 2 sessions, they're writing about this topic. Shall we really drop a customer who is unprofitable? So why he is unprofitable? So all these things, they are now giving the causes and the reasons. Now we are highlighting with the COVID now. So a lot of information coming. One customer who was very profitable before, now he's not because he's a victim of the COVID. So that means all these discussions now, students are exploring. This is called one online. And I teach about 11, 12 weeks for one semester, then we start the next one. But the second online, which I'm going to talk actually, that is the most important. The on-campus is turned to online. That is, all the students we are teaching in the class, now they are at home due to the COVID, they cannot attend the class. One of my daughters, she's doing law, University of Ottawa in Canada. So 2 semesters now, she used to study at home. That means almost 1 year. So she was in the class, now she's at home. So practically I'm experiencing now what they are facing. And the same thing with me, I'm experiencing that what students are feeling. So I have taken here experience from developing countries and from Canada. Even if we tell that we are teaching Canada, but to whom we are teaching? Many of the students in Canada, they are international students. So they might have changed the environment, they have come to a developed, or technologically developed place, or they have got some opportunities to learn, they have got resources, but yet they have come from the developing countries, like Southeast Asian countries, Middle Eastern countries, or the Far East countries. So when they come here, yet they are not used to the technology that we people are using here. That is one thing. And this is the first time in the history of Canada. The first time, if you remember, anybody who is my senior here, the first time in Canada that for years, international students, they have not seen the Canada, but they're studying. One of my granddaughter, she got admission, this UFT, University of Toronto. Another one, grandson, they're twins, got admission to Waterloo University, both of them. So they are so much excited that they will come to Canada, they'll do the studies, everything is ready. Suddenly now everything is gone, stopped. 1 semester, they are a student of Canada, but they are studying in Bangladesh. And some of my students to whom they are supposed to come, from the airport they are stopped. They are not allowed to come because we are not opening our students, we are teaching them in abroad. So we are now coming in contrast to the problems and the possibilities and solutions. We are learning. So this is the interesting learning for all teachers, all bodies, all organizations, and also for the students. is a big challenge for us. So now this I'm focusing on. The other one, I don't need to focus this online teaching. I told we are sending the materials, they are studying, and most of them, they are all mature actually. All mature. They are working at some organizations, they are having children, their family, but they are doing the online studies and they are getting the education. It's a BBA and also masters we are teaching. So, but the one which now the on-campus completely turned to online, now we are now facing a lot of problems there. And that is sure to face because it is not a traditional system of learning. This is suddenly we got into it, and then the environment, the situation made us compel. So now, if you see now classes within same zone, what are the things now here? We are using the primary platform, use Zoom for everybody. Class lectures, group discussions, presentations, they are all doing in online. There are several advantages and disadvantages of teaching through this platform. Adjustment period required for technical difficulties being technologically equipped. Now, if you go here, so what are the advantages actually? Now, what is happening with us? As a teacher, how I am feeling. It is good. Now, suppose I have opened a Zoom with all this conference. I thank to all of my friends, colleagues who have come and listening. It's a wonderful facility for us that it combined the whole world together in one place. It is saving time. Suppose when I go to my university due to traffic jam or this and that, or coming and going, and then taking preparation, going to class. So it's a very big, huge question of time consumption. But when we are at home and sitting in front of you, you are watching. So we don't need all this driving. We don't need all this communication or this transportation. So it is just technology has taken us together. More attendance. It is very easy for students. They don't need to take the dress to go to school and then take their bag and take lunch. You see, the same thing with them. They are sitting at home and they are just learning. Innovative ways to teach with a technology, different programs such as online surveys. So now this also gives a technological advancement that one can use that one when they are teaching online. Platforms have functions that mimic real life classroom setting. Buttons to raise hand, button to clap, chat box to ask questions. Everything is there. That's what they are telling. Whenever, these are the advantages. Whenever somebody can ask question, and then as Dr. Alam told that a very wonderful presentation, let us clap and give a big hand. So this all we can do, we can see each other. But now we are far from each other, but it looks like we are very near. The technology has brought us very near. So the same thing, to whom I'm teaching in Bangladesh, students, to whom I'm teaching in African countries. Suppose one of my students, she is in Nairobi in Canada, in Kenya, in Nairobi. So whenever I'm teaching to her, are students who is in Bangladesh, teaching to them, or someone in India teaching to them, because all of them, they are supposed to come and attend the class, but they could not come because of the COVID. School is closed. So now we have opened the internationally and nationally. Those who are here inside, we started online, and those who are outside, the same thing. So this is the advantage that we can gain in the domestic class. Suppose I am now trying to give you an idea what is happening within the country, what is happening outside the country. So to whom I am teaching within the country, as I told you first, I am teaching the students in Canada, but to be sure that they are not Canadian students. I have a lot of Chinese students. You see, when I teach to them in the class, they don't understand English very well. But when they look at me, my way of expression and my way of explanation, automatically they understand the things. So I told, how did you understand? That they told that you don't need the language to understand. You understand from the behavior of your talking and explanation. So that means whenever we teach that face-to-face, it makes so many things clear. I ask questions and they answer. So, but now whenever we take the chance to teach students online, we miss all these things. So there we can see some of the disadvantages. Technological difficulties, it's a very big thing, very big thing. Can you imagine within 24 hours, about 12 hours, the electricity is gone in certain developing nations. The very big problem with electricity. They are listening, suddenly electricity is gone. All connection is stopped. So we have resources, we have our recorded things, they will listen it, but still it does not give that proper, that means the enthusiastic system, or it doesn't give the proper, you can say, the result of what we are trying to give to students. Technological difficulties comes, and then you know that developing nations, they are not that much technically developed with all this method we are using, but still it is going on so nicely that we are getting good result, because now you are to face all challenges that we are getting due to the COVID. Students keeping camera off. Sometimes, okay, now suppose I'm talking, when I see that you are in front of me, camera is on, that you are just nodding your head that you are telling yes, you are understanding. That means it gives you a sort of encouragement as a teacher. When you teach in the class, we see that the students are happy, or they are telling, oh, that means they are showing their emotion, that means they are understanding. So you get very happy. But now you cannot force them. Someone, they keep the camera off, so that interaction become less difficult for some students due to less studious home. So that means sometimes you give the things to them, but now home environment, you know how it is. If someone is in school, that for that specific period, they are detached from home and they are very much in an environment, but home environment does not give that facility actually. See, now home environment, someone cannot cope up, distracts their educational drive. Less interaction, may be difficult to explain concept without a blackboard. That's what I'm trying to tell. If you teach economics or management, that you have some points. But unfortunately, since I started teaching since 1976, I had to write a lot of things with this hand in the, now these days we say blackboard, but it was at that time not blackboard. It is a different type of things. We used to say blackboard, but now there is other, we are writing with the pen and pencils. So it changed from country to country. So there, actually what I'm trying to tell, that accounting is such a subject. If I talk, you will understand nothing. But if I write, then immediately you grasp it. It's very important. So if say 5 plus 4 is 9. So that if you ask second time, so it might be confused. But if you write it on the blackboard, then you will see they can understand actually very well. It opens their mind, because to teach accounting, it needs a great techniques. When I was in Kenya, the students told that within 15 days, we understand what he's talking about. So then the teacher, my head of the department, asked how. He takes our thinking grassroots level. So if we do like that, take the thinkings to grassroots level and slowly we develop, then it is them, they become the teacher, they can teach. So for all these things, we need a direct interaction. Other subject, I don't know how you have experience, but with my experience, I saw that around the globe, that the direct interaction helps a lot to teach this subject accounting. And then next one is the disadvantage, unable to hold students accountable for not paying attention. This is what I'm telling. Now, when I teach in the class, so I see someone is talking. So I ask them, I smile and ask them, what is my last word? I just ask them. It is not charging them. See, they are mature. So I smile and say, can you please tell me, my dear, what is your last word? So he was, sorry. We are talking, we could not give attention. See, and I said, don't worry. You haven't given attention to my talk, but I gave attention that you are not giving attention. So at least someone is watching, so don't worry. So we shall cooperate with each other. Then they got the answer. So it is called that I can give attention to my students, I can talk to them, or I can encourage them that please listen to me what I'm talking about. And sometimes I take the students, those who are a bit talking, I give a little bit understanding and take them and tell them, write it in the blackboard. Write it for us. We shall. So they are going, they are writing. This is another way of making them, encouraging them to learn. So that type of things, actually, it is not possible. Okay, now we are going to talk about the international students, suppose to whom we are teaching in Bangladesh and India. I have taken Bangladesh here. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, international students enrolled in Canadian institutions had to stay in their home country. So you see, you think yourself that a student from developing countries that who paid in one family, 2 students, they paid 30,000 Canadian dollar semester fee, each one. So now we are getting about how many? So to say 60,000. So they budgeted other expenses also. They are coming, they are flying, a very big preparation. So suddenly now everything is stopped. So they have to stay at home and they have to they are learning from home. So unfortunately, due to COVID-19, international students enrolled in Canadian universities had to stay in their home country. This present difficulties in relation to the time difference. This is a big difference. Now, I thank the organizer, Professor Dr. Alam, that how he arranged time. He started from Indonesia because they are sleeping now, and then Malaysia, and then slowly he came to, when they are sleeping, we wake up. And my one is good that it is now 1 o'clock, 1 past here in this country. So we are all awake now, there is no problem. But if it would be early morning for me, I could not attend here. So this is how, when I'm teaching, that many students to whom I'm teaching online, the home country, all of them, they are waking up at night and they sleep at 7, 8 o'clock and they wake up 3 o'clock in the daytime. So that the day has come to night, the night has come to day. It's a very big problem. That means complete routine change of them. Eating, sleeping, everything is changed. Okay. Then this is we are talking about the disadvantage. This comes the advantage of the, I think if I'm not, I'm not, sorry. Okay, now this, I was here, I'm talking about this. Is it okay now?
Yes.
You can see the slide, please?
Yes, we can see the online education slide.
Okay, thank you, my dear. Thank you. So now what I'm trying to tell that the time differences are there. International students who are here, the time difference, and there are, so after time difference, I'm talking that there are also advantages and disadvantages for these students who are learning online. So I go to the next slide now. Let me see, advantages. The same as domestic class advantage apply. This is save time from commuting to institution. You see, that is also, if they would be here, for example, now they are to come out from their home or the house or the dormitory, then they have to come to school, preparation, and a lot of things that now it is not there. They are just with their family. And many students who come here, they feel homesick. It is surprising. One day I was teaching in the class, and one girl, she was crying. It is here in Canada, in Toronto. I told, my dear, why you are crying? What is wrong with you? She told, today is my father's birthday. So what can I say now, you see? Then her tears even bringing tears in my eyes, because I'm father of 4 daughters. So I told, don't worry, go outside, just walk a little bit, try to drink coffee or tea, and then you take your time and come. So this is a very big thing, that when people come from, international students come from their home place, it is not an easy job for them to forget their families, and also they have a lot of psychological things they have. So this is the practical experiences I noted. So we need to accommodate them. We are relaxed, and we are giving, showing sympathy. We are dealing with them that as a father is dealing with the children, and that becomes essential because of the environmental causes. So the student, those who are brought up here and born and brought up in North American countries in Europe, they might not have all these problems, because after some times in the family, they become free and they go out here and there. But in home country, in India, Bangladesh, Pakistan, or Malaysia, Indonesia, it is not like that. We are very much associated, close with the family. So when they come from the family, and the problem comes there. But still that they feel comfortable, they're at home, they're studying, and then their families, they're providing everything to them. More attendance, easier for students to attend online, the way it is here in the home country. Innovative ways to teach with technology, different programs such as online service, all these things. Platforms have functions so that may make real life classroom setting, button to raise hand, all these things which I discussed in our previous one, the in country, the same in the other outside also. Then we can come to, this is a very serious issue. What disadvantage that international students are facing. You see, many nations where I'm teaching that international students, very low quality internet speed interrupts class for some students. Relying deadlines in their time zone can be challenging. That is also one thing. Suppose they are to submit the paper, but the time zone, and then they are ups and down. And as I told you, then night has become day, day has become night for them when they are studying. Time difference, that is a very challenging one. Time difference makes it challenging for students to keep up with classes. Students struggling to keep up with the Canadian system, affecting their mental health, affecting their academic performance. This is a very big issue actually. So they are now, suppose they finish their 12th grade and they are university level. Whenever they started, then from here, we start giving, we have our syllabus, we need to finish it with subject wise. So we need to give all informations to them. So it becomes very much pressure on them, very much. If they are here, so they become in an environment, they are going to library, they are the dorm with their friends, but they are missing all these things. So because of that, it become a very big pressure on them. They are to now submit the assignment, they are to get the good grade, lots of things so we teachers, we understand that actually what a big burden it is on them. So in one of the previous discussion, some of my colleagues told, we need to find how we shall rearrange the syllabus. We don't know how far the COVID goes. So we need to now work on it very closely, and we need to see how we can rearrange our whole system, syllabus and everything. Here in some schools, I can see that the students, they are going to class 3 days, and other 2 days they are staying at home. That is one group. And another group is completely, they are online, they are not going to school. So we need to actually work on this issue very much. Time difference makes it challenging. Students struggle to keep up with the Canadian system, affecting their mental health, affecting the academic performance. Lack of resources, as I told you, that if they would be here, that they are going to the library, they are reading lots of books, but in a developing country, it is not very easy. Whatever they are getting through the media, through the system, teacher is supplying them, and that's what they have. And you may ask, don't you have the library in your country? There is, but there is lockdown there. Now, if you think now India is the second after the America, so how can you open a library for them? The same problem is there. Okay, so on the other hand, that we are suffering COVID in unfortunately to tell you that more than 16 of my family member in Bangladesh, they are positive. 3 of them, they're in the hospital. So this is what is happening now. At the present situation, I'm just telling about the home country. So the students, they have limited access to the resources, no direct interaction with students that we discussed earlier. So now I come to draw a conclusion. Technology needs to be developed. Our technology needs to be developed. Those who are our students staying outside, we need to have a provision to educate them or to do something for them. Okay, it is very essential for us. The international students, they're coming to study here, they're spending a lot of money. So that with that, they were getting so many facilities in Canada, but now they are not getting all these facilities because they cannot come and they are not having that facility at home place also. But now a question came that reduce the fee. It didn't work. The exactly the same fee they are paying. They used to pay when they used to do the in-class teaching like that. Okay. Now there are a lot of things comes here. We need to have a discussion. We need to see how we can provide facilities to those people. Sometimes I have a little bit unstable network. I hope you are able to listen to me. It's not interrupting my talk. Orientation is needed for international students. That's what we are talking. That they need to be developed with their system. They need to be educated with the way of their learning, because it is very much new for them too. Very much new for them too. I just make a joke with my granddaughter and grandson. I tell that I have seen 2 specific situations in Canada. I think in Canada, nobody might have the experienced that. So then granddaughter is asking, she's this life science. What is that? I told, first time I saw twins from a certain family got admission in Canada in 2 universities. I got the second one. Then first time in my life, I saw that they are admitted, but they cannot come to Canada. They have to stay and they have to learn home. So consideration should be given to students' capabilities. Now we need to develop, that's what I'm telling, we need to develop the syllabus, or we need to give the resources in such a way we can't give them the way we are giving that for the students who are inside and students who are outside. So I don't want to make any discrimination, but we need to understand their fact, that how we can bring them up the same level that what we are doing inside, students inside. More interaction needs to be encouraged for both domestic and international students. So I'm so thankful to Dr. Prof. Alam that he brought this issue and all the brain drain. I think that we shall take the brain toward the COVID, and we shall try to give suggestions how we can develop. So from the practical viewpoint, I'm teaching students in Canada, in Bangladesh, in Kenya. You see, I'm in Canada now. So students from the country inside and from country outside. So I'm observing so many things, the advantages, disadvantages, but I have seen disadvantages are much more than advantage. So how to overcome all these problems and difficulties, how to encourage the students who are abroad, and how to make them happy. So if COVID continues, we need to find a way out. Now, one of the students at the university here, they gave already notice that next semester you will not be able to come. So that means completely 1 year. They are now at home and they are studying. So almost all universities will be doing the same, because now our COVID situation is not becoming better, but it is becoming worse. So the same thing at home country also. So with all these things, I wish all of you that to be safe and all to take care. I can see that now we are relieved from mask now. We are not using mask here. So this is also one advantage. Technology, that we are in front of the computer, so we don't need to put the mask. But that is very essential. If you go one step outside the house, it made compulsory for us. So I wish that we shall get a great lesson from this conference, and we shall try to come out with some suggestions how we can develop our way of teaching both home and abroad during this pandemic to make our this educational program successful. I thank you all for listening. Thank you, Dr. Alam, and all the participants here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Alam, for sharing your insight and your perspectives on online learning in a post and pre-COVID environment. They're very much appreciated, and I would now like to ask if there's any questions that somebody would like to pose. So we have no questions, and I'm now going to turn it over to our next presenter, Dr. Doug Hensler, who's going to talk about the tectonic shift in the professorate.
Rocky, appreciate it. And thank you very much to the participants who are remaining to hear what I have to say. This talk is really an extension of a talk I gave in May of last year in China, the opening keynote at a conference there. And the title of that talk was, Professor, Your Job is in Danger. And I think you'll see why I was saying that back then. So the information or the perspective here, which is really a 40,000 foot perspective, was developed well before the COVID struck, although I would say that COVID has certainly accelerated that. And just by way of information, my first encounter directly as a professor with distance ed, if you will, was in 1997 and the subsequent 8 years when I taught in a distance program at the University of Colorado. And we actually had 3 cohorts. We had students in the classroom where we were recording the session. We had students off-site at their company's education centers along the Front Range of the Rocky Mountains. They were one-way video. They could see me, but I couldn't see them, and we were two-way audio. And then we captured these sessions originally on VHS tape and shipped them all over the world. But by the time I left 8 years into the program, we were doing that, CDs, DVDs, and streaming. So you can see how the technology evolved over that period of time. That program has really exploded since I was there. It's probably 7 times the number of students now. The title of this keynote, you'll see that I've misspelled tectonic, and I've done that on purpose because I wanted the issue of technology to really come to the fore. There's also some economic issues that I'll talk about. So let me move ahead here. These are things I'm going to talk about, but there's certainly things that have influenced my thinking about what's really going on in the professoriate. And then also specifically with regard to technology, and I'll get into these as we proceed. I just referenced Singularity University, which is out in California at Moffett Field, the San Francisco Bay Area. And these are the two founders of Singularity University. I once heard their then executive director speak at a conference. It was an AACSB Dean's Conference. And I always kind of like to sit in the back in these keynotes because I like to observe what other deans are thinking or doing in their body language and so forth. And the executive director told us that they can't get accredited. And the reason they can't get accredited is they change too fast. And of course, if anybody, any of you are familiar with dealing with regional accrediting bodies, we have them all over the US. They're steeped in bureaucracy and they don't like change. And I got to tell you, that's got to change because our world is just moving so fast with the technological changes, COVID aside. Now, COVID has really, as I mentioned, accelerated this. So I think it begs the question of what is a singularity, and I think there's a lot of definitions. You could have I'll mention it later, a Gestalt definition. I think when I thought about Singularity University and some of the things that they were saying and singularities, I thought about astrophysics and black holes and the fact that those are very, very dense places, and ultimately everything will end up in one. But I also think that another example of a singularity is that ultimately technology and art will become a singular entity. And when we observe some of the art that's being produced by technology, it's fairly astounding. There's also the issue of futurist thought and thought conduits. So this is something that Singularity University is addressing. It is the Center for Exponential Growth Thought, which has to do with how fast entities are growing, particularly companies. And there are examples where companies were estimating 7% growth and they were doubling and then doubling the next year. And then I also commented already on the non-accredited university. There's a whole scheme of big data and data capture, and that everything we do is now being recorded. There's a huge amount of data that's being gathered. We can get our genetics studied, and we can learn about the predispositions for diseases that we have, and a little bit about our life expectancy, although technology is affecting the field of medicine so strongly that I'm not sure that we can even rely on any estimates of life expectancy anymore. Universities are certainly collecting data. I don't think that universities are using their data a whole lot from what I've experienced. And there's an implication here then coming from the big data side that we ultimately could have mass customization of learning. I'm going to revisit that in just a little bit. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, which is sort of the precursor. So if we look at video games, you know, machines will learn the way the players are playing and they'll present additional challenges to them. When I was the provost at the Naval Postgraduate School, we were doing some research on helicopter pilots, and so there was the technology researcher on that and a neurosurgeon researcher on that project. And what they were doing was analyzing eye movements by helicopter pilots under stress. And so they'd actually get them lost in the program. In the first go round of 20, 19 got lost. I think one of them realized that he or she were lost. One realized that they were lost and endeavored to get unlost. Well, from that, they were able to develop some intelligence in the computer that would inform the pilots that they were lost if they didn't know they were lost, which is really an advantage when you're down in the canyons of mountainous country. And I mentioned earlier the gestalt. I mean, the fact that when we put a lot of things together, we actually create something that's larger than the sum of the parts. We've also discovered that in artificial intelligence that machines have taken to hiding data from humans. So I guess you can think about the movie 2001 and what HAL was doing to the astronauts there. And then algorithms that are developed into the machine learning, which I suppose you could say is early artificial intelligence, but I really view the two as a difference. And then the fact that artificial intelligence is going to destroy jobs, but it's also going to create jobs. And then a quote by Ray Kurzweil, one of the founders of Singularity University, that these computers are going to develop emotional intelligence, if you can believe that, and become as convincing as people in negotiation. So you won't know if you're talking to a human being over the internet. It could be a chunk of artificial intelligence. And then the idea of a super artificial intelligence singularity in the future. Now I'm going to shift a little bit, and I don't expect you to read this. This is just sort of give you a picture of learning theory and the different theories and what's going on in terms of learning theory, because for me this is a very important piece of where I think we're going in terms of technology and its effect on education. And this will impact in-class education. It will certainly impact distance education or online education. But this gives you a pictorial of the gamut of learning theories and the different knowledge that we have with regard to how people learn. That is really important. So what do these learning theories do? Well, they talk about information and knowledge and how we process that as it comes into us, and then how we are able to absorb and assimilate this knowledge, and then our ability to retain it and then apply it and leverage it. It also recognizes and hopefully leverages the difference across people, the differences between left brain and right brain, and then bridging the two halves of our brain. And there's work that's going on right now in that regard. In fact, we were developing, my last deanship, we were developing a very unusual MBA program that doesn't look like any sort of traditional MBA program. And in the first course, we had really a humanist was going to teach the course about bridging between the two hemispheres of our brain to get them to start working with each other. I think the more that we can do that with regard to how we're interacting with students using technology, the more brain power we will solicit from our students and of course society in general. And of course channels of the learning process. They also provide us with ways of applying machine learning first, but then most importantly, artificial intelligence for learning how the student learns. Mm-hmm. And if we can learn how each individual student learns and apply artificial intelligence to that, then I'm coming back to mass customization of learning. Now, what does this imply for the professoriate? To me, it implies you better start changing how you view your work, because I think the future is not going to be the traditional type of professor. So the professor that develops content, walks into the classroom, delivers the content, answers the question, holds office hours, does some advising, and then also is doing research or clinical studies outside of that mainstream of teaching. And just to give you an alternative, Western Governors University here in the United States, based in Salt Lake City, Utah, it always was online. and it's competency-based. They have over 75,000 students, and I'm not suggesting they're the only one in the world, but this is a really prominent one in the United States, and they have disaggregated the professoriate. They have different people developing content, developing the content. They have different people delivering that content. They have different people doing the learning assessment. And they have different people doing these other things. So they've completely split apart what the professors in the traditional sense have done. So these people are specialized. And so they have course advising. So let's say I'm taking an accounting course, like Dr. Alam referred to. There is somebody who advises that course, but that's a different advisor than the total curriculum advising that a student may be going through. So this is an example how the professoriate has already been split up into pieces. And I suspect that if we look at the traditional type of professor, that in the future, that professor will be addressing mainly content. And what that implies then is that design is going to become extremely important in the future. And of course, we have schools of design that are already cropped up and have been around for some time. Stanford's is a prominent one. So let me now shift a little bit to an economic region and just comment that these are a few of the people that have had an influence over my thinking about what's going on in the professoriate. Certainly in a learning organization, Peter Senge. New growth economics is really important here because it addresses the whole issue of knowledge as a good and viewing it through an economics window. So Paul Romer and Brian Arthur are prominent there, have been for a long time. Romer recently won the Nobel Prize in economics. He was predicted to win it 20 years ago. Intellectual property or capital, which I think Leif Evenson and the Roos brothers and some others developed that back in the 90s. And then that led to thinking about knowledge as an economic good. Now, if we think about ordinary goods, take an apple, if I eat the apple, you can't eat the apple. So we are rivals for that apple. And the fact that I consume the apple excludes other people from consuming the apple. Knowledge is not like that. If there's a piece of knowledge lying on the table in a conference room when we're all sitting around the table, the fact that I use that knowledge does not preclude anybody else in the room from using that knowledge. So knowledge is a much different and very, very special economic good. The apple is subject to the law of diminishing returns. Knowledge has increasing returns. And the implication of that is abundance. And I think that's where we're headed in the longer term, where knowledge and the fact that it's increasing returns is going to lead to a world of abundance. And I think we will have free education, if not virtually free education as a result, because we will be generating so much wealth. If you just look at the impact of COVID in certain businesses like Amazon, Amazon's business has absolutely skyrocketed. The technology that we're using for this session, Zoom, their demand has absolutely skyrocketed. And you can go on and on and on. So, and these entities are becoming very, very wealthy. That wealth, you know, I don't think it's a matter of taxation. I think it's a matter that the owners of that wealth will see the advantage of using that wealth to further the knowledge of the world. So let me just sum up and open it up to questions. Technology is changing rapidly. I mean, I can remember Bill Gates saying, well, 640K ought to be enough storage. Maybe some of you weren't even born then, but I remember that. And look at the storage capacities that we have to do. Speed across the internet is ripping along. And now Elon Musk is going to have us go over the satellite. The betas are pretty slow right now, but ultimately he'll get the speeds up, and we all might be just going through the satellite rather than through some service which is going to use satellites anyway. I think, so the knowledge good is going to produce a lot of abundance and wealth. And I think that'll lead to universal income. There are a lot of opponents to that. I think in the beginning I was probably an opponent to that because, you know, I'm an incentive link type of economist. But as long as we free up people to pursue knowledge and then apply that knowledge, I think we'll probably be okay. We'll have the replacement of labor with machines. The professoriate is basically labor, so there's some social implications. I remember having a conversation in my last Gene's job with the dean who had the social work programs, and I said, you need to start designing your new social work programs. And she said, what do you mean? I said, there can be a lot of people out of work because of technology. And if they don't get back into some learning environment where they take on something, or if there just simply aren't enough jobs, these are people that are going to need things to do, things that are fulfilling to them. You know, they will be up on Maslow's pyramid, but if they don't have self-fulfillment, they're not going to be very happy people. And then again, I think we're going to get to the point where mass customization of learning is in place, that when an individual goes online on a course and starts to do exercises online, the machine at the other end, the artificial intelligence at the other end, will recognize the way this person learns best and will start to fashion challenges and leads and channeling, conduiting for that person so that they grasp the material and are able to internalize it and then be able to apply it and leverage it at a certain, from there on. And then I think it baits a question, who's going to dominate the mass customization of learning? Because business is already there with products and services. So do they have the wherewithal to really understand mass customization? Or is the academy going to dominate that? Or are the two going to get together and work on this as a combined entity? And I suspect that the two will get together, and in some sense, Singularity University is there now. So that is my presentation. I hope I've made up a little bit of time here. Welcome questions.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hensler. That's certainly an interesting presentation that you've left us with today, and I'm sure that the audience will have some comments or questions, and I'd like to invite those now.
Okay, it's very, very interesting talk. Very nice way to end the day as well. I just want to sort of look at some of the negatives as well as positive. And I don't mean this being the dismal science of just looking at negative, because there's always positives and negatives. But the Amazon example you gave was quite interesting. But on the other side, there are quite huge numbers of redundancies in stores and place-based stores, of course. And you'd expect that the net effect of that would be a huge decrease in the number of people working in retailing, for instance. Just as happened when they built these new shopping centres. I remember one in England, in Newcastle, it was called the Gateshead Centre, and they blew the trumpet of 5,000 new jobs in this great shopping centre. But what they then did the research and found there were 20,000 less retail jobs in the area nearby because of economies of scale. Instead of having two branches of Woolworths, they had one. Instead of having 100 cleaners, they only had a few. So you always get pluses and minuses. So that's one thing of the jobs, and part of the role of the universities and other parts of further education, of course, will be to prepare people for what are the new jobs and the changes in the existing jobs as well, because existing jobs will change fundamentally. So that was one of the issues, is how do we get this change? And then the other issue is the redistribution. The thing about tax is it is based on national boundaries predominantly. While Bill Gates or Elon Musk or whatever deciding where the allocation of the resources, if they have control of most of the resources, will be based on a different basis. And things like social work, the demand for social work is predominantly, I would say, in most countries, public sector led. It's not private people employing social workers. It's a decision by politicians, basically, how many social workers do we want to employ? And therefore, tax, this balance of tax between countries and within countries, is, to me, is going to be absolutely a fundamental issue of will the resources be there, or how do we create the resources there? So perhaps we will get into an era of unlimited abundance, as you say, although they say that about nuclear power, is that nuclear power would be so cheap that we wouldn't need to meter electricity because it would be so cheap. Unfortunately, we didn't actually take into account all the costs, etc., both of getting rid of it, but also of generating it. So that's why my slight worry, I don't want to be totally negative, because I'm definitely not totally negative, but I do think that there are a number of downsides as well. And these downsides have to be very, very carefully taken into account so we avoid them. So a long rambling comment, but welcoming your response to that.
Yeah, I think we could probably sit in the pub for 4 hours, deal with that. On the retail side, I think the answer that I would have is it depends. For instance, if I go to the grocery store, I kind of want to get out of there as soon as I can. The thing that astounds me about grocery stores in the United States is the number of choices. I mean, if you go to get mustard, there might be, 20 different, probably more different varieties, and then 3 different sizes of each of mustard. And I'm going, why do we have so much choice? It's almost overwhelming. But the other side of retail, and I think for some people going to the grocery stores this way, it's the experience that, they're getting a lot of psychic income of going. But Amazon and other online retailers have just annihilated that. I had a faculty member in my last job who told me she had 220 dresses that she had bought online, and she would get them and try them on. If she liked them, she kept them. If she didn't, she sent them back. And I was just astounded by I think that's a particular individual that has that approach. But so she's having that experience online. She doesn't have to go to the department store. And what we're seeing in the United States, and I don't really think it's Amazon that's doing it so much as some of these other specialty online, but Neiman Marcus, which many of us refer to as needless markup, is bankrupt. JCPenney's bankrupt. Sears bankrupt. Kmart's gone through a lot of trouble. Those sort of the lower end. Kmart is. JCPenney, Sears, in the middle. Needless Neiman Marcus is high-end luxury. Nordstrom's retail stores are struggling, and they've shifted their focus to Nordstrom's Rack, which is an outlet for stuff that they're moving out of Nordstrom's, or they buy specifically for that chain. So I think it really depends. We bought our online purchases at Amazon, and it's little stuff. Like I'm going elk hunting next week, so I needed some gators and leg gators, so I got them on Amazon, and that kind of purchase, which isn't a lot of money, and it's convenient, and doggone, the stuff's there the next day. So in terms of that kind of purchasing, yeah, there's a big impact on stores, and particularly small businesses. We've seen a lot of small businesses, and it started with the book dealers in towns that have just gone under. So yeah, that's an issue. I think technology is going to bring some very interesting social problems, if you will. Or the role of the social worker is going to be very important. And I would have dismissed it 30 years ago, I suppose, but it's going to become important because people really are getting detached from each other. You know, you can go to a park or a high school and you can watch two students sitting next to each other texting with each other rather than talking. And so I think that loops right back around to some of the comments earlier is what would be the best way to teach? And it would require very, very good teachers, professors. It would be one-on-one or small groups and a Socrates method of teaching, I think. But that's not something that we can afford now, and maybe we will be able to afford in the future. If you look at, you know, some of the really, if you will, elite universities like Princeton and Harvard, they use small groups a lot in teaching. So, but they can afford to do it. I'm sure I didn't touch on everything that you spoke to, but I hope I got a couple of them.
You know, you responded interestingly, and I think, you know, in many ways, you've identified some further issues. There's going to be societal issues with technology. I mean, your example of, you know, I see young couples going out to a restaurant, sitting side by side, and they're texting each other, looking at each other and laughing. And I'm thinking, yeah, I can see a 35 or 40 or 50-year relationship there, all right. You know, there's going to be some challenges. I think that, yeah, businesses are going to make some fabulous money based on technology, and universities are going to have to switch their model because they're going to have to respond to that changing environment. And what you see right now for COVID and how universities have responded, there's been some serious challenges with how they've responded, because they don't have the technology, they don't have the faculty with the skills to teach online. I mean, teaching in a classroom is very different than teaching online. The skill sets are very unique in an online environment. I've taught online for 20 years, and how you engage people and move them and demonstrate the learning is very different than in a classroom, you know, with 200 students sitting in the room. And I mean, the top front rows get the learning, and the ones in the back are kind of doing whatever they want. They fall asleep, and, you know, exam time comes, maybe they'll cheat, maybe they won't. You know, it's all of those kinds of activities. And the innovators are going to rise to those challenges, whereas the people who think things are going to change are going to be left at the train station, and the train has been going to pull out.
Here's another example, a real life example, that I just shook my head when my son told me about this. My son is a senior vice president for sales for a company, and he needed to develop one of his managers more, and so he wanted to put him at ease and, you know, get him to relax a little bit. So my son and his wife took this manager and his wife out to a very nice place for dinner. And they went in and they sat down, and the waiter took the beverage order. And the guy's wife whips out her iPhone and starts chatting with somebody. And she doesn't put it down. And my son and his wife are trying to engage this couple in a development effort, and the guy's wife is not even there. And my son told me about that, and I was just shaking my head. I said, my God, this is just, did she not realize how important that was to her husband's career? Or maybe she was texting with her divorce attorney, who knows?
Well, you know, that's probably what she was doing, but I will tell you, a lot of restaurants now have started to use the technology to block the cell phones, although it's illegal. You know, there is a time that, you know, think back 30 years ago, if somebody come up with or 40 years ago, if somebody come up with a device where you text messages back and forth, and then somebody had invented the telephone, we would never have had text messaging. Telephone would have been seen as the latest new innovation. I mean, whereas now you see them and they're texting. I mean, the number of accidents now for texting and driving far exceeds what you get for impaired driving. yet you don't see the same level of disdain for texting and driving.
I think it'll come. You know, there wasn't that. I remember the days where people drove around with a can of beer in their hand. Now I'm going to date myself, which I always thought was sort of a weird statement to make. But
no, that's not a weird statement. I can identify with what you've said.
I can remember the days of party line telephone. We had a party line when I was a kid. So, yeah, the changes that we've seen have been rather mind-boggling. And I remember talking with my father when he was about my age. We were very close, and we would have these conversations about where society is going. And he, who went through the Depression and then was a highly, highly decorated pilot in World War II, he would say, I don't recognize this country anymore. And I find myself saying that today. And it makes me wonder about the alignment of technology extending life expectancy and how rapidly change is taking place. So change is going to accelerate. And I think it's going to get to a point where it's actually so stressful on older people that it restrains what technology can help life expectancy be. I think the mental part of aging is going to get worse.
That's a very interesting comment of the impact on technology. One of my concerns with technology, and not so much in a place like Canada or the United States, because you have that broad level of wealth, but in developing countries, how will the people afford the technology to move towards that learning that they need? And how will you create that divide for the have, or are you creating the have and the have not at just a different level? And how will businesses that want to work in that global environment adjust to change that reality in these developing countries?
Well, there are massive cultural changes that have to take place. Romer addressed this very early on in his career when he talked about what emerging countries need. And he was addressing the fact that they had object gaps, which are roads and bridges and ports, et cetera, and idea gaps. And he said that idea gaps are the easier ones to close. And you can see that there's going to be a connection between closing idea gaps and the cultural shift that has to take place. But he identified 3 things that have to occur to achieve that. One is that the country has to have a stable monetary policy because it's got to have outside investment, which would be really the first thing I'd say, that an emerging country needs outside investment to get going. And so, people are not going to invest in a country where they fear they're going to not get their money back, okay, with some return. The second item is a functioning legal system, which means a system of contracts and contract dispute resolution. The Chinese call a contract simply a pause in the negotiations. So you've got to have the two. You've got to have a system of contracts and the ability to resolve differences as we move through the contract. I think a functioning legal system also means a minimum of corruption. I'm not sure we've got that right here in the United States right now, but you have to have those two facets of a functioning legal system. The third thing is an emphasis on education. That is just central to having a country merge. I think Vietnam is a fairly decent example of a country trying to get those things inculcated into their economy. In contrast, I think the Philippines is a country which really, where the people have been how do I put that? They've been done a great deal of harm, and quite frankly, it's the Marcoses that really did. The estimates are $5 to $15 billion that they skimmed off the top, and a lot of that came from the taxpayers of the United States. And the consequence, if you look at the Philippines, say in contrast to Singapore, the Philippines really has some deep-seated cultural problems. First of all, there's a lot of political corruption to the point where people get killed. The other part that I've observed about the culture there is that men will get a woman pregnant, and they may or may not be married, and then leave. There are a ton of single mothers in the Philippines trying to get by, in some cases getting their kids into higher education. But, you know, it's a real serious situation in my estimation there. And they're already losing people to COVID, not from the disease, but from starvation.
Yeah.
So that sort of draws a little bit of a contrast. And of course, Singapore from the start was oriented toward a free market type of economy and education and building up the culture of their country. It was done with some pretty harsh measures, though. We'll say that. But I mean, if you look at Singapore compared to even Vietnam, they're such a robust economy. So those are the things that I'm aware of that can be done to get an economy going. I used to use that example when I taught value creation, particularly Mexico. And if you look at, just to go on for a few minutes, if you look at Mexico, there's basically three economic strata. There are the poor, which is maybe 85%. There's the middle class, 12%, and there's the wealthy, maybe 3%, maybe not even 3%. So if we're making clothes in Mexico for the citizens of Mexico, and we make clothes for all three levels in the economy, what should be our objective? Where are our highest margins? Our highest margins are going to be in the luxury line, and then next to it's going to be the middle class. So our profitability is better, much better there than it is in the 85% poor class. So what does that motivate us to do? Well, it motivates us to get people educated so they can get better jobs, better job producing companies are lured to Mexico to produce there, or startups happen in Mexico. So we have a goal, and the government is beginning to really realize this now, has a goal of getting a lot of people educated. But here's the problem, and here's the problem I think China faces. China's been very adamant, very long time now, getting people educated, and it starts from the time the babies are born. They're really focused on education. But when you give a society education, when they become educated, they demand two things. One of them is economic opportunity, the chance to make income to better their lives and their families. The other thing is you have to give them a say in what's going on. And that's democracy. And right now, that's a problem in China, because, and I think ultimately if they continue down the stream, the CCCP is going to have to either cede some decision making, and they are in some sense already, but it's going to have to get more democratic.
That's true. I think we're running out of time. I'll look at the broad moderator, but before we conclude, I want to come back to Doctors McQuaid and Webb's presentation, along with Dr. Allam's, and to say that if you look at the presentations that we've had over the last hour and a half, they all point to one major I guess, theme, and that is the theme of being able to adapt to change. It's being able to engage the stakeholders based on the cultural influences that you see. It's being able to have a value proposition which attunes to many people as opposed to a singular level of society. And if we don't have those levels of engagement across all forms, if we don't take the research that we've seen from Doctors Webber and McQuaid, if we don't take into consideration Dr. Alam's views of teaching online, which I think you'd find are quite prevalent no matter which professor you talk to, there are challenges. And if I look at your own thoughts today, Dr. Hensler, it's that continuum. And we have forms such as this, and if going forward would continue to have these types of forms, we can collectively take that intelligence and apply it to build, as we sometimes say, or people say, a better mousetrap. Well, it's not the mousetrap. In this particular case, it's online learning, and it's the engagement of people across multiple cultures in the global environment. And so my parting notes is I want to thank you all for, debating, discussing, and sharing the information that you've made available. And I'm going to turn it back now to our general moderator for any comments he would like to add.
Okay, Rocky, thank you very, very much for moderating this session. I think it has been a great pleasure to listen to the three presentations. As usual, the three of them, it's not the first time I have listened to them. Always you listen to new, exciting work. And I think one thing I remember 10 years ago, I can't remember exactly, but maybe 7-8 years ago, when universities in the UK start introducing cameras in all lecture theaters. So I remember in Sussex, in London, all of them, every single room, I'm sure Ron and others all in the UK, every single room you go, there's the camera being fixed there, and you have to log in and you have to record your lecture. And I remember 7-8 years ago, in one of my previous employer universities, students stopped coming. Most of them, they don't come to the class. That before the COVID, many years ago. And at that time, I said, or this is my point, is that people, they have to think. Many years ago, I said about how to get this engaging. If you can see your daughter, your son, she or he hold a mobile phone for hours and hours, because what they are watching here is very engaging. And I remember a couple of people told me, they are from the Silicon Valley. They said to me, everything is being, this is 10 years ago, being developed now is all games. It's not, they have to excite people on these online technologies. And 3 years ago, I remember we had in one of my classes, the tutor came to me and she said, she went to the seminar and there was no student, 0 students. I have never thought in my entire life I will come to a day where I will be told there is no one in the seminar, no, 0 attendance. And that has been repeated. And the dean was in very difficult situation because he wanted to say to me, Alam, somehow or another, we still have to bother them. And I said, but it's quite difficult. And the reason for that, because the students, they will get the same lecture like what we have recorded today after, I think at Sussex was 24 hours. So once you finish 24 hours, it will become available in the system. You just click on publish, the students will see it. So the students, and the opportunity cost of them going and working part-time or working in ASDA, I remember Nia in Brighton, is more important for them than, or they will go and work, filling the shelf, whatever it is, and then they will come and watch your lecture. And also because books have become online available for many years, 7 or 8 years, you can browse all the books at the library, this is what is in the UK, and I think across the whole world. So I think these are the questions which I think Douglas is raising about, I think the key question, how to make online learning exciting, how to engage people. And this is the problem. If we don't engage the listeners, in this case, maybe the students and others, I think we will lose them. And I remember in one of the staff meetings when this COVID started, the same like this one, In one of the staff meetings, there was a research like Ron and Alexa, major research funding by a couple of involved couple of councils in London, and they said they are organizing a conference for the school, so they will discuss it. It's to do with livelihood in some poor council in London, sustainability, and so on and so on. And I remember one of the speakers, like Ron and Alexa, one of the main speakers of the research project, you can't see him. And when the other colleague said to him, X, could you please put your camera on? So to the extent people, they just, I mean, you can't see them. And 7-8 months ago, and I said, this will be the problems. And now I have heard it from different universities, colleagues from Westminster universities, University of East London, Cambridge, I heard it from one colleague. I heard it from someone leading a big project on energy. We will listen to him tomorrow from Southampton. They all said to me, Adam, we don't know what we are doing because your teaching is all blank, is all black. You don't see anyone. You don't know whether the students on the other side are listening or not. This is becoming a very tiring and boring experience. I have listened, I have heard it from 4 different universities. So it's very boring. It's going to become very boring for the lecturer, and he will just do it as a job. And the moment I think teaching or learning become just a job you're doing to earn living, I think that will be a disaster because you're not going to engage. And I think the students, you don't know whether they're there or not. This is the other second problem people need to consider it seriously. But just to take you, I am just starting with a couple of people from Bristol and another one from Wales. We're going to be conducting some research on using some data science. I'm not a data scientist, but we are using it. We've been excited by a research run by Bristol team from Bristol University, UEL, and another university, I can't remember. I mentioned it earlier. The song Despacito was watched almost 6 billion times across the whole world up to 2018. Despacito as a song has become like a center of a research by the funded by the European Union to find out about live streaming, because live streaming, it costs money. This is what we have been doing from the morning. It costs a lot of energy, it consumes data, and so on and so on. So those researchers back in 2019, when they presented the finding of 2018, they said when they started this research project, I was in the university in East London, they found that the amount of energy consumed by 5.8 at that time, 2017-18, viewing, live streaming, viewing of this song, Despacito, is equivalent to the energy consumed by 5 African countries. And they tried to find out why people watch this song. And they tried to find most of the hypotheses they couldn't find it fit. It was #1 in the US, and the song is not in English. It was #1 in, so they tried to find out why people watch this song, so it can. Now, anything which is not exciting, you can see exciting song like this. Michael Jackson didn't even make it to 1 billion. So this is where people start thinking digital marketing and about how to use this online. As Douglas said, people start to think in their mind how to make really, really exciting 5 minutes or 2 minutes and so on. And this is where the problems. And I think that's where universities or maybe government, they try to think of how to train us, the one who will deliver, how to make our material exciting. It's not just about delivering it. I mean, I can just easily click share and I will do my talk and the session is finished. Really, this is a challenge now because the students sooner might say, I expected that. They will come and say, why do I pay you 9,000? I said that in a staff meeting like 6 months ago. I said to them, it's better you discount your prices now, so you will excite some people who are sitting at home. They will say, okay, let me do a course. Rather than they will come to you in September and they will say to you, why I'm paying you 9 or 10,000 or 15,000 in the master program. I am sitting at home and you are teaching me from home. And this is a question people in Manchester ask the students on their, because they were locked in their room, isolated. They have that on their window saying, why 9,000? This question has been asked. The chair of the education committee in the parliament, he argued or urged universities to reduce their costs because it's so different than, so I think these are key issues. And as Douglas said, I don't know whether our jobs will be sustainable in the nearest future or not, but we really need to look to the bigger pictures. And we don't know, maybe other countries, they might be interested too, but it is becoming a real challenge. I would like to thank you all, and I can see we are having still people from Indonesia watching. I think it's very late in Indonesia now. We have people from Iraq watching us, and I think we exceeded our time a little bit, but thank you very much for all your time. I really appreciate it, and I value very much your time here. And the good thing is many universities across the whole world are very interested on having these talks. We put them in the YouTube. Mervyn assured me everything is fine. Although we had a small stoppage in the Facebook. There's thousands and thousands I have seen watching all the Facebook. It's not just one. So we have lots and lots of viewers from different, I think it's everywhere. We had questions coming from Turkey, from Indonesia, from Malaysia, Nigeria. So I've seen many questions from different parts. So I think what you have delivered today, all of you, from the morning, is well received. And I will just finish by maybe reading to you the message, or without reading it. What is his name? Petro Demetriou from the UN. He attended all day, and he sent me a message. I will share it to you in the group later. He said to me, I couldn't leave the room because it was so exciting listening to one after. I really enjoyed it, and I'm sure many people enjoyed it. Janet, thank you very much. I can see that you've been working very hard and you're still here. Mervyn, I know you don't see him. Mervyn, can you show your camera? So at least people, they will see you. Okay. We know you're working very hard at the back. So we see you tomorrow. We're starting tomorrow at 9:30 again. But tomorrow from 11 until 4:30, we should finish by 4:30, hopefully. There will be 3 mini workshops. So the first one, we have the Vice Chancellor from Sudan University of Science and Technology. We have the UNESCO chair, and that will also be chaired by Amir from Iraq, which will be an exciting, I'm really looking forward to, because this is a real demonstration. Online is really connecting us. So tomorrow, the first session is a discussion on, we'll continue on the same online learning. But then from 11 o'clock, we start 3 mini workshops. The first one is on data science, machine learning, and big data. That's 1.5 hours. And then we have the lunch break. And after the lunch break, we have data science and data science by Rabi'. Rabi' is the lead scientist or the lead data scientist in a major European projects based in Cambridge. So he's one of the top, really top expert in this area. And this is going maybe echo an European projects, quite a big one. And then we should finish by 4:30. So these are workshop, and you can encourage your students to attend it because they will be more structured in a workshop rather than a conference presentation. So thank you very much. Everything will be finalized. Once I have these links from Mervyn, I will just share it with you and then you can share it. But it's already been shared across the whole world. But we will have a proper video for each lecture, edited. And thank you very much. And wherever you are, good evening, good morning, and good afternoon, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Best wishes to all.
Have a super evening, everyone from Canada.
And we appreciate all of you, particularly those from America and Canada. I know you work very early now, and I know people are very late now, but thank you very much. But we just have to do it this way. We have to start with the early risers like Indonesia and India, but it has been absolutely fantastic day. I've listened to so many, even my mind is many case studies from Uganda, Botswana, Bahrain, Turkey, and really exciting what we have listened to, Indonesia. So we see you tomorrow. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Prof. Alam.
All the best. So
thank you, tomorrow. Everybody. Thank you.
So see you tomorrow.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you.
So please remember, if we all help and do a little bit, it will make a big difference.